get started, if I can just remind people to switch mobile phones off or put them on silent. Right, membership of the committee. Councillor Firth. Yeah, just. Thank you. The rest of us are as printed. Minutes of the previous meeting, can we agree? And thank you. Interests and lobbying. I'll start with Councillor Firth, I don't? No. Carol? Andrew?
Right. The Oakenshaw application, I'm sorry, I forget the agenda number. I've spoken to many people about this.
Last item.
The last item, yes. And I have given advice on procedures and so on, as one does. But I've not expressed an opinion about the outcome of the application.
Okay. Councillor Firth? Councillor Armour? And I've got application number 2017-93488. Applicant and objectors. That's all I've got. Item 5, deputations and petitions. Right. Public questions? No. Item 7, site visit. This one at Ravensthorpe Road, Dewsbury. Visited this morning. Item 8, Walkley Terrace, White. Visited this morning. Item 9, this is Forest Road, Dalton, Huddersfield, which you'll remember we had it at committee last time. This is update. Fazana.
Thank you, Chair. The application was deferred on 5th October. Members raised issues related to the accuracy of the plans and details submitted. Further plans have now been received. These show sections through the site from Forest Road to the application site boundary and the provision of where retaining gabion walls will be provided. So a number of sections have been provided which gives accurate details of the levels to the rear of the properties, the gabion walls and the retention of some the land and the embankment to the rear boundary. Based on the information provided, officers are satisfied the application site can be developed in light of these gabion details. The issue of urban green space was discussed in detail on 5th of October. So to summarise, and to comply with policy D3 of the UDP, the low value of this urban green space site, the identified need for affordable housing in the area and sufficient provision of natural and semi-natural urban green space in the area, officers negotiated 5 affordable housing units as a specific community benefit to be secured through a Section 106, which officers consider in this instance would outweigh the loss of this urban green space site, and recommended for approval as set out in the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
No speakers, so members, it's up to you. It is a good outcome. 5 affordable out of 9, pretty good.
Okay. If everybody's quiet on this, I've read the papers. I didn't make a site visit, but I think it's an excellent plan, and I move the recommendation.
Julie, further seconded or any more comments? Carol.
Yes, I'll second it. Sorry, I'm still sort of rewinding in my head what we were saying last time. But yes, I think, as you say, it's a good outcome to get those 5 properties. It's still a very steep site, which is and good luck to them. But it does make sense in the shape of the street. So yes, I will second it.
Any more comments? No. It's been moved by Councillor Firth, seconded by Councillor Pattison. Those in favour, please show. 6-0. Thank you very much. Next item, we'll go up to page 27. This is the item that we had a site visit at this morning in Etmond-Wyke. Glenn.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Glenn Wakefield. I'm the case officer dealing with this application. Before I present the application, I'd just like to draw members' attention to the update and the fact that we've had further information submitted and documents provided after the completion of the committee report. The application site comprises a land associated with a former railway line, occupying an area of approximately 2.7 hectares. You can see on the aerial photograph the site outlined in blue there. The topography of the site reflects the previous use and comprises mainly of a deep, steep-sided railway cutting. Originally, land levels generally rose across the site in a northerly direction. As the cutting cuts across the hillside, the levels on the eastern side here are higher than on the western side. There is a public right-of-way which runs along the eastern boundary here, which links Walkley Terrace, which is this road here. Members will recall we parked the bus there first, and then runs all the way up to Horton Street at this point here. The nearest residential properties are to the west of the site over here and to the south-east of the site just down here. There are other residential properties to the north around Horton Street, Sunnyside and Brunswick Street. The applicant wishes to import inert waste in order to remodel the existing landform. The applicant has indicated that this is necessary to facilitate the future development of the site for residential purposes. Other than a small spur serving an existing chemical works, which ceased operations in the early 1990s, the site was last used as part of the wider railway network more than 50 years ago. It's therefore naturally regenerated. These photographs here show how the site appears at the moment. This is looking north along the cutting towards Heckmondwike. This is looking west across the site, cutting in the foreground here. That's Norristhorpe in the distance. This is looking southwest down the cutting. This is the Spen Country Park in the distance here. Again, looking north towards Horton Street. This is looking south from Brunswick Street Bridge, again looking down the cutting. This is looking from the back of the houses to the west, to the west of the site across the cutting here. And this is looking north again. Members will recall we stood on the bridge this morning and looked along the cutting. This is where we were viewing the site from. The proposal has two elements: the initial landfill operation and subsequent development of the site for housing. With regard to the landfill phase, the applicant proposes to create a temporary access and compound off Walkley Terrace. Members will recall that's where we parked first this morning. That's in the southeastern corner of the site. The site would then be progressively worked from north to south, so work would commence at this end of the site here and then come back down towards Walkley Lane. The applicant estimates that in order to create a gently sloping platform which would allow residential development to commence at some point in the future, 138,000 tonnes of inert waste would be necessary. The applicant has indicated that this would be at a rate of 18 deliveries per day, and as a consequence, the development should be completed in just over 2 years. Sorry, the landfill phase of the development. This, of course, assumes a constant supply of inert waste over that period. This process would require the compaction of the waste and it being engineered to such a standard that it could then be developed at some point in the future. As part of this phase of the development, the applicant also proposes to create a cycle and pedestrian route link with the spur that runs from the Greenway, which at present terminates at the Walkley Street Bridge. You can see on the plan here that it would follow a route along the western edge of the site up to the bridge here where it would terminate. The proposed cycle route would be constructed to an accepted standard. It will 4 metres wide. It would have an asphalt surface and a gradient of less than 1 in 20. These are cross-sections of the proposed route. As you can see, at certain points it would need to run through what can be described as a cutting in order to ensure that the levels were maintained. Following a satisfactory period of settlement, the site could be developed for housing. As part of this application, the applicant is seeking outline planning permission for subsequent residential development of the site. The applicant has provided an indicative layout, but the outline application seeks to reserve all matters except the point of access and the actual spine road here. It's proposed to take access from Horton Street for the residential element here, which again members had a look at this morning. We parked the bus on Horton Street here. It's just on that shoulder there. It would run into the site in a southerly direction and terminate at the southern end. So that would be the only way in, the only way out. And from that spine road, you'd have spurs running off to feed residential properties. Whilst we're not looking at design at this stage because it would be reserved, the applicant has indicated what the likely design of properties would be. It would be a range of terraced townhouses, 2, 3, 4 stories, as you can see on these plans here. But again, I would stress we're not actually considering design at this stage. Full assessment of this proposal has been provided in the committee report. The principal issues that have been considered relate to the impact on local amenity in the area, including residential and visual amenity, flood risk drainage issues, environmental issues including ecology, potential contamination and air quality impacts, and highway safety. I'll just pass over to my colleague Peter Firth and he'll just speak on the highways issues relating to this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The proposed means of access for the landfill operation introduces HGV traffic onto a residential street. The numbers set out in the application suggest that this will be for approximately 2 years, with an average of 18 in and 18 out per day. As Glenn has said, the experience of the council at other landfill sites suggests that this timescale is optimistic and that it could be much longer, and this experience also suggests that there could be more intensive HGV periods than those quoted in the application. But whether it is for 2 years or longer, highways are concerned about the impact on highway safety. This specifically relates to the swept path of the required movements, which requires the full width of Walkley Terrace to complete those manoeuvres, and there is also a potential for waiting HGVs on the public highway. From a future residential point of view, Highways anticipate that a suitable access could be formed. And for those reasons, Highways object to the proposal.
Thank you, Peter. As members will note from the committee report, officers consider that the landfill element of this proposal is unacceptable. Officers have significant concerns that the proposed temporary access arrangements would have a serious detrimental impact on highway safety, and information provided in support of this application fails to demonstrate that this element of the development would not have a detrimental impact on the neighbouring uses as a result of noise and dust, or that it would not adversely affect local biodiversity, local air quality, or increase the potential for flooding. It's therefore recommended that this application should be refused for the reasons detailed in the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Right, speakers. First, we've got Victoria Harrington. All speakers have got 3 minutes apart from elected members.
Thank you for hearing us today, committee. I'm one of the residents and I saw you parked right outside of my house on Horton Street this morning looking at this site. You've seen the reports, I hope, and you've heard the recommendations of the very experienced planning committees about viability and the serious flaws in this plan. But we want you to understand, as part of the residents of Hetman White, what actually this is going to mean to us, and to understand the depth of the anger and the outrage we feel that this application has been brought. Nobody wants this application. We have submitted 181 written objections. We've stood in Hetman White Town Centre on cold mornings, and people do not want this. They will sign the petition and say this is not in our interest. If you drive through Hetman White, you know what it's like. If you raise children in Hetman White, you know how difficult it is to get the children to school on a morning. If you are retired, you will not want this outside of your front door, day in, day out, for 2 years. If you are a shift worker, you will not be able to sleep while this application goes ahead. This will affect everybody who lives and works and travels through Hetman White. And why does that matter? Well, it matters because if you live in Hetman White, you already are living in a very dense, overpopulated area where we have very little open space. The impact of the loss of this amenity, it doesn't belong to us. We know it doesn't belong to us, but it is an urban green space, and we need it. Most of Hetman White is concreted over. It's busy, it's congested, it's polluted already, and we do not want this on our doorstep. This all adds, if this application goes ahead, it will add to the pressure on North Kirklees, and it's simply not fair on us. In our area, you didn't mention the Brunswick Mill development, which has taken place over the last couple of years. Lovely development, but has massively added to the amount of traffic on Brunswick Street. And they will overlook this site as well. People who've bought new houses and who want to live overlooking an open green space. Hetman White needs this open green space. This is not a derelict area. The only dereliction in this area is when the landowner ripped up the area to try and make it look as poor as possible. We need this environment. We need it for the local wildlife, the mammals, the amphibians, the wildflowers, the birds, the kestrels and the buzzards that hunt in this area. We want this greenway to be opened up, but not at this price. This landowner has held this piece of land ransom for decades, and we are not prepared to put up with this.
I'm also a local resident of the area and object to the planned application. I've sort of viewed the application online. I also visited the council offices to look at the historic applications to try and get a feel as to what the issues with this cutting are, why, you know, what we're up against. And the numerous proposals, historically, they've all got to a certain point, which is there isn't a central route to get material into the railway cutting. There's been various harebrained ideas to try and build ramps and roundabouts. All of them meet in the end with the same outcome, which is the application is withdrawn because the site is effectively landlocked. There is no suitable route. The roads around the area are not designed for HGV vehicles. The area is residential mainly in nature, and the roads are narrow. There's obviously people have parking outside their houses. Trying to throw a load of massive wagons into that mix is just not something that the area can deal with. My sort of view on things is that the only real sensible access to the cutting is via the greenway on a bike or on foot or on horse, or from the existing ringway that currently stops at the what's the Robert Field pub. So ideally, that piece of land should be opened up as the greenway. As it is, there needs to be no more ramps, just straight through. The old rail bed is a perfect place for that. The other issue is the highways and congestions in the area. Heckman-Wyke is a bit like a crossroads in public transport network. So you've got the main routes going from Leeds through to Huddersfield and also from Bradford across to Dewsbury and Wakefield. And as somebody who doesn't have a car, I rely on these routes and also my bike to get around the area, and any additional burden on the local roads would massively impact the people that also use the bus and the public transport network to get either to those aforementioned places or onto the railway network at either Dewsbury or Lowmore at Bradford. So I feel that this proposal would adversely affect all people that are trying to live in a sustainable and ecologically friendly way in the area.
I'm a local resident of Walkley Terrace. Chair and committee, I believe there are many reasons why you should refuse to grant this application. However, I'll limit myself to those related to road safety. The applicant has submitted a transport statement prepared on their behalf by VIA Solutions entitled Walkley Lane, Heckman-Wyke. It concludes there are therefore no highway safety or capacity reasons why planning consent for the proposed development should not be granted. Despite its title, nowhere in that document could I find any reference to the consideration of existing traffic flow along Walkley Lane. Therefore, one day last year, the 3rd of November, I parked my car on Walkley Lane and observed traffic flow as it passed the junction with Walkley Terrace. Between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m, I counted 6,662 vehicles pass me. At times, the traffic approaching Heckman-Wyke Centre backed up beyond the junction with Walkley Terrace. Sometimes traffic was stationary in both directions. Only yesterday, the Huddersfield Examiner quoted data from the transport research company INRIX, which named the B6117 Walkley Lane as the 9th most congested road in the UK. Can you imagine the chaos that would be caused by an additional 18 20-ton wagons entering the site via Walkley Lane and Walkley Terrace and 18 20-ton wagons leaving? The only traffic survey results provided in that report seek to portray Church Street, Brunswick Street and Horton Street as quiet village roads. Those familiar with Heckman-Wyke know this is far from the truth. Vehicles park on both sides along their lengths. These roads become congested frequently throughout the day, with school traffic and drivers wanting to avoid the gridlock of the town centre. The transport statement refers to an insignificant number of injury collisions being recorded in the area around the development. I'm sure that if I looked at a small enough length of the M62, I could make the same claim. The 18 wagons a day in and out for phase 1 of this development will not just affect Church Street to Walkley Terrace, but the whole of the town, including its centre. Using the same resource material, crashmap.co.uk, I looked at the injury collision stats for the past 5 years in Heckman-Wyke, 76. Is that statistically insignificant? I didn't know without a comparison, so I obtained the figures over a similar area for 20 other towns within West Yorkshire of a comparative size, ranging from Murfield with 14 through Cleckheaton at 41 and Brighouse at 74 to Pontefract with 91. Out of 21 small towns, only Pontefract has a greater accident black spot than Heckman-Wyke. Statistically significant? I think so. My conclusion, there are, after all, both highway safety and capacity reasons why planning consent for the proposed development should not be granted. I therefore urge you to reject these applications. Thank you.
Next, Councillor Kendrick. The Bird Eckman-Wyke's answer to Bill Oddy on birds.
Sorry?
Eckman-Wyke's answer to Bill
Birds
Oddy.
and bats, that'll be me.
You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm here, committee members, as ward councillor for Heckman-Wyke. And really, what I want to say is Heckman-Wyke isn't known for its wide open spaces. It is, in fact, one of the smallest wards in Kirklees, with the third highest density of population. There are, on average, 32.7 people per hectare for Heckman-Wyke. The average for Kirklees is 10.7. And I know there are rural areas, but around built-up areas in Kirklees, we have one of the highest densities. From the site visit this morning, members of the committee will be aware that the proposed development is surrounded by residential areas. It isn't out in the country somewhere. How many houses, how many people will this impact on? Walkley Lane, Walkley Terrace, Walkley Grove, Walkley Avenue. I bet you didn't look at all the Walkleys. Brunswick Street, Horton Street, Sunnyside and so on. Even up to Churchill Grove at Corley, which overlooks the site. Hundreds of homes affected. Hundreds of people affected around the site. Thousands of people in Heckman-Wyke affected by the traffic issues and pollution. It isn't as if the people living in the Walkley streets, Brunswick and so on, are a long distance from this site. They surround it, they are adjacent to it, they overlook it. It is currently a green visual amenity for residents. And I suppose I want to pose the question, is it reasonable to expect and accept that for 114 weeks or more, that all these people would have to cope with 20-ton lorries arriving 18 times a day to deliver infill, Monday to Saturday lunchtime, 5.5 days a week? And it's not just the deliveries. Earth-moving equipment would need to be used to deal with the substances delivered, which I think was referred to in the presentation by officers. I have looked at several research papers about sound levels associated with heavy construction equipment, and they range from 80 to 120 decibels. And that will go on all day. They have to move the ground around. Continuous noise, pollution, dust for at least 114 weeks over 2 years or more, and that's before any house building has started. I know that individual circumstances can't be a major consideration of this committee, but I know residents in this area who are shift workers. I know there are residents in this area who have serious health conditions. I know of a baby living as close to this site as you can get with some of the most serious and life-threatening breathing conditions that the medical authorities have ever identified. This Council's vision for health and well-being in the Joint Health and Well-being Strategy is, and I quote, healthy people enjoying a great quality of life for longer. I want that for all the people of Kirklees, and in particular, I want that for the people of Heckman-Wyke. This proposal has all the potential to have a serious negative impact on the physical, mental and emotional health of the people in my ward. Will anybody ever be able to open a window? Will anybody ever be able to sit in their garden in the summer? apart from if we were waterboarding them or using some other way of torture, I don't think this could have a worse impact on my residents, and I therefore oppose this application. Thank you.
Finally, Andrew Stoddart, the architect.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. The proposal is for redevelopment of privately owned designated derelict land. Background, the applicant commenced negotiations with Kirklees by way of a formal detailed pre-application submission on the 29th of April 2015. Over a series of documented meetings with Officer Steve Hopwood, we agreed the principle of the development and other elements in accordance with the adopted UDP, inclusion of an urban greenway designed to Sustrans standards, the general layout of the housing development and internal roadways, and we also agreed the content of the future planning application, all as was submitted with the application. The pre-application concluded with the issue of an advice letter dated 12th of April 17. Whilst noting access into the site may be problematic, the Highways Officer did not state the Highways proposal was fundamentally unacceptable for the fill operation. Subsequently, a planning application was submitted and validated on 13th of October 17. Highways Officer's comments were due to be received by 17th of November 17. The Highways Officer could not achieve the deadline and the applicant agreed to an extension of time, and the Highways comments were eventually received on the 10th of January 18. The applicant was disappointed by the content of the response set against the context of the pre-application advice. We have been equally disappointed by the subsequent reticence of the Planning Officer and Highways Officer to meet with the applicant's design team to address issues raised. Matters have been further confused by the Planning Officer, who has stated to us in an email of 1st of February, in his opinion, the only viable vehicular access to facilitate the engineered fill activity is via land outside the ownership of the applicant. This is totally unworkable and we question the legitimacy of the opinion. Contrary to the spirit of the NPPF paragraph 187, the applicant has not been granted any further time to address issues despite numerous requests to do so. The Planning Officer has decided to put the application before you without further substantive consultation. Reasons for refusal, items 2 to 5 on the report, can be conditioned and additional information has already been issued. The principle of residential has been agreed. Now the issue is to agree the temporary vehicular access for the engineered fill activity. In conclusion, members, it's your decision on how you determine this application this afternoon. You must consider, do you want the benefit of affordable quality housing on a sustainable site at a time when you don't have a 5-year supply? Do you want the benefit of a dedicated 400-metre long stretch of urban greenway and cycleway connecting into the existing network? And do you want the benefit of significant Section 106 financial contribution to education? Put simply, the pain of a temporary engineered fill operation should be weighed against potential loss of other green space in Greenbelt as developers seek consent on less sustainable sites to deliver housing. I commend you members to approve this application contrary to the Officer's recommendation.
Members, it's down to you. Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say right from the off that I do agree with the Officer's recommendation to refuse this application. I do know Heckman White to some extent. I do know that this is part of just a small piece of green space that there is in Heckman White. I do know that the density there is extremely high. But more importantly than that, I'm thinking about this. If this was a quarry site, if this was an application to quarry all this land out, as opposed to filling it, there is absolutely no way we would even consider it. With houses so close to the edge of this site, the roadway as it is, I mean, even if it wasn't 18 vehicles or actually 36 vehicles a day, it's extremely difficult even to get one in and out of this particular site. The roads are clogged around Heckman White. There's no way you can put up any screening around the site to mitigate the noise and the dust, etc., that will take place over at least 2 years. The compacting machinery itself will be an absolute nuisance. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, but if it did actually work, to put them 96 even houses on this site. I find it absolutely gobsmacking, I have to say, that it's even been considered right from the word off. So I will move refusal.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I too am minded to accept the opposite recommendation. Having looked at it, as we have on this committee, I don't think there's really scope for such a large number of HGV vehicle movements over a minimum period of 2 years. Personally, I am not convinced that the infill work will be completed within that period of time. I think it will be one of those sites where there's further applications for extensions, etc., 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 ad nauseum. So I think residents would be facing many years of disruption. Looking at the proposed or the indicative layout, it does appear to me that these houses will be pushed very, very close together. I don't think there will be a great deal of natural drainage left because a significant proportion of the land will be concreted over. So I think there's a potential problems about future drainage. But my main fear is the ongoing issue of disruption to the lives of residents through a long period of infill. I'm prepared to second the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with what's been said. The difficulty, it seems to me, with this site is that in order for the authority to get the benefit of extra housing, we're going to have to wait really quite a long time for that to happen. There is evidence, it seems to me, and we've been told that with infill sites, they can take much longer to infill than the applicants estimate, and they're continually having to ask for extensions so that they can carry out the work. And this, of course, depends on a regular supply of inert material to put into the site, which we have had evidence to show that this isn't always readily available, and needs to be sourced from all over the place. I suppose there is a worry also that whether other contamination can get into inert. I know with the best will in the world you will endeavour to stop this, but and one would hope that it wouldn't happen. But I think that the timescales that are mentioned are quite unrealistic. Yes, we haven't at the moment got a 5-year land supply, but this will probably take more than 5 years for housing to actually get onto the site. So I definitely support the officer's recommendation.
I'm not going to say too much on this because it's already been said, and I won't even tell this committee what I said when I got off the bus because it isn't worth repeating. The bottom line is the idea is it's not very well thought out. In fact, it hasn't been thought out very well at all. Settlement, I did ask the officer about settlement. They were going for probably 2 years plus. If you filled it up next week, you'd be looking at 5 to 7 years settlement, and probably even longer. And you're not going to fill it up within the next 20 years unless there's a lot of spoil knocking about to put in there. So, as far as I'm concerned, go along with the officer's refusal. Thank you.
Any more for any more? No. Well, as you can guess, there's not a right lot going for this application. So it has been moved by Councillor Pattison for refusal. It's been seconded by Councillor Armour. All those in favour of officer's recommendation to refuse, please show. Thank you very much. That's unanimous, 6-0. Thank you. Next item, We move up to page 47, and this is the site at Ravensthorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Me again, Glenn Wakefield. Again, I just draw members' attention to the update and the proposed change to recommendation following recent negotiations with the applicant. Members will recall from the site visit this morning that the application site comprises an operational concrete products manufacturing plant and includes existing administrative buildings, variety of workshop buildings, hard standing storage and yard areas. The current use has continued for many decades and the site has evolved to its current condition over that time. As can be seen on the aerial photograph here, the area has a mixed residential commercial character. The site is on the periphery of quite a concentration of commercial activities which are over here to the north and northwest, and residential properties are located to the south of the site along Ravensthorpe Road here and to the east around Lees Hall Road, which is here. A full assessment of the proposal is included in the committee report, but I will briefly outline the key issues relating to the development. The applicant proposes to construct a new precast concrete product plant, which you can see on the layout here would be this building here on the northern boundary of the site. They would also be looking at creating new storage and yard area facilities, also producing a one-way HGV system around the site, which, as you can see where we came in this morning at the entrance here, you would then turn right and go around the periphery of the site in one direction and then back out in that direction there. It's also proposed to build two gantry cranes in the centre of the site here, and the proposal also seeks permission to demolish most of the existing buildings on the site, except for these buildings near the site entrance here. The new concrete production plant, which is this building here, would have dimensions of approximately 156.5 metres by 26 metres and would be 12.4 metres to ridgeline. The gantry cranes that are proposed would be 8 metres in height. As you can see on here, that's the one-way system that goes around the site, but there would be a spur here which would allow vehicles to get to the concrete batching plant. The building itself is of a traditional design for this type of operation. The materials would comprise a precast concrete frame, a mixture of long-span precast panels on the external elevations, and then above that, polycarbonate panels here, and on the roof would be composite cladding panels. The building design reflects the requirements of the casting operation, which needs to incorporate high-level plant and machinery such as travelling cranes and concrete distribution plants. Although the new building is large, it will be set at a lower level on the site, which would help to limit the visual impact of the building. You can see from this section here, these sections here, this is the new building here and here. This is the adjacent site, and as you can see, these buildings are at a higher level. So this building would actually sit below those buildings there, and there is the railway embankment on the northern side of the building, which again would help to mitigate its visual impact. Officers consider that the design of the proposed building, whilst utilitarian, would not be out of keeping with the wider setting, which includes buildings of a similar scale and would not therefore have a significant adverse impact on visual amenity. The proposal would consolidate a number of activities which currently take place within a mixture of different site buildings. The proposed changes to external operations at the site may involve increased noise levels being detected at the perimeter of the site. However, it's predicted that overall noise levels would not be excessive and comparable with ambient noise conditions as they are at the moment. Increases in noise levels from the new production building are predicted to be negligible. The application site is located in the vicinity of a number of heritage assets, namely Ravensthorpe Station, which is Grade 2 listed, Lees Hall Farm Group, which is, it contains Grade 1, Grade 2 star and Grade 2 listed buildings, and Wallace Farm, which is an identified non-designated heritage asset. However, it's considered that this proposal would not result in any significant additional adverse impact on the setting of these assets. Flood risk information has been provided by the applicant, which indicates that the site is at low risk of flooding. However, following negotiations with the applicant, further information has been provided and is now being considered by the Environment Agency and the lead local flood authority. The site offers limited opportunities for local ecological systems. However, it's considered that there is an opportunity to enhance local biodiversity as part of this proposal. The applicant has agreed to provide landscaping as part of the scheme, and it's therefore proposed to secure the submission of landscape details via planning condition. These photos here show the current access. Members will recall we stopped at the reception this morning and then drove up this area here. This has subsequently been removed. This is the old concrete waste tip, which is now gone. We drove up the little access road here and parked at the top to overlook the site. As you can see, visibility from this access is reasonably good in both directions. It's proposed to continue using that site access. A transport assessment has been provided by the applicant in support of the application, which has been accepted by officers. It's considered that the current access arrangements and proposed parking provision will be adequate to accommodate this proposal. 2 representations from members of the public have been received with regard to this proposal, and the issues raised have been addressed in the committee report. In conclusion, the development would help to secure the continued operation of an established long business, safeguarding employment opportunities in a sustainable location. There are other similar uses in this area, and it's considered that adverse impacts associated with this proposal can be successfully mitigated by the imposition of appropriate conditions. It's therefore recommended that committee delegate approval of this application to officers subject to the successful resolution of flood risk and drainage matters and agreement on hours of proposed deliveries and dispatches from the site. Thank you, Chair.
I've got no speakers registered, so members, it's open to you. Councillor Eric Firth.
I'm just a little bit puzzled at the update. Forgive me if I'm a bit thick. On the bottom line there, it just says pollution expressed concern there is potential for an increase in HGV movements once the development is operational. But given the operationals will be more efficient, with a potential impact this could have on air quality. And I don't understand that. If they're more efficient, surely there'll be less impact on air quality.
Through you, Chair, that really is referring to emissions from the increase in vehicles. So by increasing vehicles, potentially, that could impact on local air quality.
Though they don't anticipate any.
In their transport assessment, they're indicating that they don't envisage an initial increase in vehicle movements, but there is the potential for it to increase to perhaps double what
I understand.
That there is at the moment. So in those circumstances, what we will be seeking is an air quality impact assessment by condition once the development has been completed to assess whether or not mitigation measures are required.
I understand. Chair, I do know the area very well. I think it's a good application and I move the recommendation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I also am in favour of the application. I'd just like a little bit of clarification, if I may, from the officer, which is what number of jobs are we looking at? Presumably it will safeguard jobs. Will it increase the amount of employment?
Through you, Chair, at the moment there is 70 jobs associated with this site. That wouldn't increase initially. Obviously, if things improve in relation to production and they need to employ more staff to accommodate that, then there is the potential for employment to increase. But initially, they're not looking at increasing staff.
There may be some more drivers.
Sorry?
There may be some more drivers.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for that. I remain in favour on.
Councillor Pattison, then Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to express my ignorance as well. On page 53, which is 10.6, it says the site is proposed to be safeguarded for mineral infrastructure in the emerging Kirklees local plan. How is concrete a mineral?
Through you, Chair, the MPPF requires local planning authorities to safeguard mineral infrastructure sites, including concrete manufacturing operations. So that's why it's been safeguarded.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I suppose that we've said that there might be an increase in HGV movements. Can you just explain how, whether there are any restrictions on which direction they should go in, and how will this be enforced?
Through you, Chair, it's proposed to require by condition that a traffic management plan be produced. That would indicate which route they intended to take. I would suspect at the moment it tends to be turning right out of the gate and heading back towards Ravensthorpe, because that would be the easiest route. But we can control the route through the traffic management plan.
Members, any more questions, comments? It's being moved and seconded by the Firth twins, namely Eric and Donald. Those in favour of the application, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. 6-4, none against. Next, move up to page 57. This is Stony Bank Lane. I think this is part 3 today.
Afternoon, members. I'm the Case Officer Matthew Woodward, one of the Senior Planning Officers. This is a representation of 2 planning applications which were deferred at the last committee on the 11th of January. The applications were deferred so that officers could negotiate with the applicant concerning the use of materials, and in particular to request that natural stone was provided throughout the development. Officers met with the applicant shortly after the committee meeting, and the applicant has confirmed that they are willing to provide natural stone throughout the development. So the plan on the slide above just shows that the scheme has been amended to reflect the change in materials. So all the boundary walls and houses would be natural stone. So with that in mind, I don't intend to do a detailed presentation, but I will summarise very briefly the 2 schemes before you. So there are 2 applications up for consideration. 2017-93053 refers to the reserve matters, which is for 48 dwellings, and that's been submitted on the back of an outline planning permission. Now, for reasons concerning anomalies with the red line boundary, the applicant has then submitted an application which is running concurrently with the reserve matters, and that is a full application for 4 dwellings. So altogether, the proposal involves 52 dwellings. So members might recall that during the last committee meeting we did cover issues concerning residential amenity, and we did detail issues regarding design. Now those issues officers consider to be acceptable, and they are detailed in the report, reasons as to why we're supportive of those elements. And all of the matters are considered to be acceptable in this respect, and therefore planning permission is recommended for approval, subject to some details in terms of the Section 106 agreement, which are detailed at the start of the committee report, and that is to secure affordable housing as starter homes. So 20% of the homes within the development would be starter homes, and to secure the blue areas, which will be public open space. Those areas would be entered into a management company. Again, that would be secured by Section 106 agreement. Additionally, there would be some elements of play provision provided within the public open space at the bottom of the site in the area which I'm just indicating on the slide above. So in conclusion, it is recommended for approval on the back of the amendments that the applicant has provided following the deferral of the previous committee.
Right. First objector is Graham Bird.
Okay. Thanks very much for listening to me today. Just for a quick ease of reference and for the limited time available, I thought I'd put a few notes onto a drawing just as a thought. It would be easier to explain and easier to visualise. First major concern that I still have regarding the discharge of these reserved matters is the connection point of the existing drainage. Currently we have a foul drain, 6-inch, running through the centre of the site, which is to be diverted. This drain is essentially goes through many properties at the moment. Additionally, onto the scheme, there will be 52 houses of foul water, which will then be put onto an existing 6-inch outlet. So as such, the current design does not allow for an upgrade of the existing drainage system to take the increased capacity. As such, on the drawings, it does say that Yorkshire Water will require confirmation that the diverted sewer has sufficient capacity to accept the existing and proposed flows. At this moment in time, I've not been witness to anything of saying that that is actually the case, so it creates large concern. My suggestion is that if Yorkshire Water do agree regarding the capacity prior to planning approval, then at least we know that there's no pumping station required, no foul pumping station required, because to my knowledge there's no availability of space on the site. Adding to this, so that's item 1A is the actual connection of where it connects from the existing from the new onto the existing. 1B, that shows a new drain going down Stonybank Lane. As from previous comments, you might be aware that it's a 1 in 7 gradient, which is extremely steep. I appreciate that the access point has already been agreed regarding that road, but for the drains to actually go down a 1 in 7 gradient is extremely steep. There is a current issue on Stonybank Lane regarding the drains and the overflow capacity. Quickly going on to item 2, the line of houses are in a straight line, and that's not classed as being sort of a good planning, especially from an aesthetic point of view, but also from a safety point of view regarding the transport going down the hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, this is my third time sitting in this seat, and I may make some errors today, so if you can spot the errors, then we'll look at that later. But despite the report at the outline saying that the aspects of neighbours' amenity need to be seriously considered at the reserved matters stage, so far, not 1 minute of your discussion time has been spent on this. I think the time has come for me to stop pleading with you to consider other people and their lives. You're not interested. Just hold that thought. Instead, I'm going to give you some observations on your decision making, which I and many others consider to be totally undemocratic and is in the self-interest of the Council. It would appear that you do not read every submission for or against the development. I understand in part the practicality of this, and you need to rely on the pre-seed versions. But in doing so, you're not aware of the errors which are contained in some of the reports, particularly from Highways reports. When errors or misleading statements are brought to your attention, you seemingly ignore them. If you do not question these false statements, errors or misleading statements, which are brought to your attention by the public, then the decisions that you make can be seriously flawed. One of the biggest errors of judgment which you are about to make is taking the word of Highways reports on the safety of Stony Bank Lane and Kirkbridge Lane. If you believe that this stretch of the road with no pavement is safe against all the evidence presented to you by local people who know that it is not safe, then you've made a grave misjudgment. Any serious or fatal accidents along this stretch, as foretold by local residents, will, in greater measure, rest on the decision which you have misguidedly made. Please listen to local residents and act upon their concerns. As far as errors are concerned, if you feel I've made errors in what I've said, which I know I have, how do you think I feel and the residents feel? Probably the same as you feel if I've misjudged you. Thank you.
Next is Susan Drake.
Good afternoon, Chair. I came a month ago at the last meeting and I put all my points to you. And one of the main points, apart from objecting to it all, of course, were the 3-storey houses that are going to be built down the side of my garden. And they are going to, particularly the upstairs, are going to be overlooking my house. Where's my privacy? Straight into my kitchen, lounge, dining room, and at the other side, straight into my bedroom. I just don't think there's any respect for existing neighbours. I've been there for 46 years, and I haven't been given an answer to this question. I'd really like to know if those can be made into just 2-storey houses. It makes such a difference to me and to other neighbours. It's so upsetting. Sewage, of course, is a great big problem. I've had it in my garden and into my lower story of my house 18 months ago through a broken pipe in the field where you're going to build. And it lasted for 6 weeks before Yorkshire Water found out the problem. And as I said before, you can imagine the horrible smell and the disgusting mess I had. It is a total health hazard. Cholera comes to mind. This is how it happens. I was pleased, obviously, that this decision has been made to build the houses of stone. And obviously, as my neighbour said, the roads are so dangerous. We live there. We know how much traffic there is. It's horrendous. And all the children walking to school, the little ones walking with their mums and probably one in a pushchair. A girl was killed on the top road a couple of years ago because the pavements are so small. Thank you.
Next, we've got Diane Harper.
Good afternoon. My objections to the proposed plan, cover two distinct areas. Firstly, it's the use of the proposed use of the existing soil pipes to service the new development. The soil pipe as it exists now is of the required size and capacity. The proposed development just adds 52 new dwellings, along with all that foul waste, into one 6-inch soil pipe with no adaptation planned. Are Yorkshire Water indeed even aware of this? This soil pipe runs under my own property at the bottom and other people's, and goes sort of right the length of Stonybank Lane. By agreeing to this development, I would like a guarantee from you, councillors here today, that you would stand the cost of any proposed leaks, any leaks, any bursts, any damage that occurred as a result of this use. My second objection is the issue of the proposed access road entering the junction on Stonybank Lane. As we know, this 1 in 7 hill is extremely dangerous in winter with the ice and snow. Only 10 days ago, us existing tenants couldn't get out without skidding, a loss of control, and actually abandoning the vehicles at the top there. Adding potentially 104 vehicles into this 1 in 7 hill is dangerous and outright irresponsible. The road needs to be, the access road needs to be replanned, as it's an obvious road safety hazard. Thank you.
Next, it's Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Chair. We're looking today at the detail. We've already lost the principle of whether or not to build here, which is unfortunate. And at the last meeting, I talked about the difficulties with the access, and it was confirmed then that they were already agreed on outline. And I just hope officers learn from mistakes that have been made on this particular planning application. With committee having agreed to the principle of housing on there, we ought to be able to get the best out of the application in terms of design materials, planning gain and access to mitigate the impact on neighbours and the local infrastructure. We have a concession from the developer to build in stone, which is welcomed, but we still have other outstanding concerns which have not been addressed, and I think a company the size of Red Row Homes Limited should be able to address these concerns very easily. These are: 1, reducing the impact on the dwelling Cobley Green by reducing plots 13 to 17 from 3-storey to 2-storey dwellings. And the same for plots 18 to 21, which are on the item that follows. I take it you're taking both together. I wasn't sure, but 2017/93609 has plots 18 to 21 on it, which continue down the southern side of Cobley Green's boundary, and they're all 3-storey. If you can imagine a wall of 3-storey houses all the way along that garden boundary, when it's totally unnecessary. If they're going to be houses there, let's have 2-storey houses so that there isn't that impact. The second point was adjusting the position of the garage at plot 1 next to the old tank house. And again, that house is also impacted upon by plot 13 being 3-storey. The Section 106 agreement, we're here again. There's, unfortunately, there's little point providing a contribution for MetroCards, given the infrequent bus services. And the £15,716.80 would be better lumped with the £24,000 towards the cost of making Newmill Junction work. Members will be aware that we have a scheme for Newmill Junction which Highways have drawn up, which we're trying to raise money so that this scheme can happen. Some members of this council are keen to see more house building. If we're going to build more houses, let's make sure we build in keeping, we build houses people can afford to buy, and which do not impact adversely on the setting and the neighbouring properties. Planning committee has the ability to do this, and I get the impression the planning officers would welcome support from you to achieve better outcomes for communities and not simply accept high-density, urban design estates plonked in village settings. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we're here once again. What we're trying to do now is... Speak before me, if you like. It's up to you, Chair. Oh, thank you, Chair. Right, Chair, thank you. What we're here today to do is to try and fine-tune now at the stages that we've got to. I'm pleased that they listened about the natural stone. That's going part way to helping this site blend in to the amenities. Nigel has spoke, obviously, of some of the things. I'm not going to repeat them. But what we've got here is now 104 vehicle movements coming out on Stony Bank Lane from this application. That needs to be taken into consideration. There's going to be no highway improvements that will mitigate those vehicles coming in and out. So therefore, as Nigel said, we'd like some of that money to go to try and stop the deadlock in Newmill. The other main thing is the sewer and the drainage. If you remember, we as ward councillors asked about Yorkshire Water and how we deal with them, etc. The last time, and we had meetings with Yorkshire Water and the Environment Agency. And it's peculiar, really, that Yorkshire Water don't know how many houses is going on the network in Kirklees. We don't always confer, although we used to do, on the subject of drainage and sewers. The site at New Mill that's ongoing now, we did warn you about the sewer there. We took no notice. And this last couple of months, we've had overflow from there and problems. We've had Yorkshire Water out, and they've found that developer has not actually constructed that sewer properly at all, and this is causing some of the problems of the builder. So on this one, we need to make sure that this sewer is dealt with right at each stage. We need it inspected, our officers out there, so that it gets done right, because if we don't, we pick up the tab. And we can't afford as a council to keep picking up the tabs when developers should do it right in the first place. What I'd like to say to the developer is this: now he's got houses built of stone, they'll be able to sell them at a premium price. That means more profit out of this site, and it's a profitable site. I know this. I've been in the building trade myself. So he can afford to do it right. Because let's face it, once the developer leaves this site, he goes off with full pockets, and all the problems are left to us. And we have to sort them out, and that's not on. Not on at all. So I hope that these things will be looked at. I know you might think, oh, well, it's Ken Sims again, you want it to delay, but it would be same on your patch, I think. You would want these things right. We know we've got to build more houses. We know that's got to come, but if we're going to do it, let's have it right in our area, in your areas. And we've just had that big one that I dealt with over the years that you've just refused, and I'm glad you did. But there we go. So, Chair, I would also like to think our planning officer on this has been quite due diligent and listened, and I know he's having a job with Redrow, negotiating with them, but I don't know whether he'll be mindful to delay this again. That's up to you, but I do think you could, and I do think you should, to try and get the three-storey problem and the sewer actually sorted out, and now it's going to be right, and the contributions right for the highway network. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Jim Lomas. I am Director of DLP Planning. I've been assisting Redrow on this particular matter. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity just to address you this afternoon. I've listened to some of the points that have been raised, and also try to briefly address those as best I possibly can. But I think for those of you who were here in January, you will obviously recall this application was deferred in order that we could certainly look into the opportunity to deliver this scheme in an all-stone construction. That is something that Redrow have undertaken, and we are looking to develop all these properties now in natural stone in accordance with your policy as requested at the last meeting. I think obviously you have been alerted by your officer to the fact that the principle of developing this site has already been established, and that the means of access and the highways have already been looked at the outlined stage. So unfortunately these are matters which have been addressed and are very much in commencement, or are certainly commensurate with what's actually been accepted in the past. You will also note that we are looking to deliver 20% starter homes on the site, which again is in accordance with your own council policies. So again, hopefully that is something that you'll be satisfied with. Now, I just want to pick up on a couple of points in particular, which seem to, of course, concern to the residents and the community, and that relates to the matter of this three-storey house, particularly on the properties towards the southwestern corner of the site. There is a site plan which has been provided and supported, which clearly demonstrates that this property is set at a considerable level below the property at Copley House. I don't know whether the officer has been able to get that or demonstrate it. I have it here on my file, but it shows there is a significant change in land levels, and certainly the suggestion that it is actually 3 stories in a level, it is not the case. It is dropped at a significant level, and also the appearance from ground level will be little more than 2 stories. So in terms of the impact on that, there should be no problem. In terms of the drainage matters, clearly Redrow have no intentions of actually creating any sort of drainage problems on the site. It's not in their interest or the community's interest. And certainly Yorkshire Water have been consulted and have raised no objections to the proposals as they have been submitted. Clearly many of these matters are issues which are addressed at the building regulation stage, but certainly, thank you, these are matters which will be addressed by the developer in due course. In terms of other matters of drainage, clearly 117 Hill, we accept that, but drains do not flow at 117. There's technical ways to basically drop the drain and make sure the drains drain at the appropriate rate. So all those matters are technical matters and matters which can be addressed. And finally, developing a residential properties next to residential development is a compatible land use. So I would not expect any amenity concerns. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Members. Eric Firth.
I've written 1 or 2 notes down. Some actually the chap from Redrow, or the agent for Redrow, has addressed that. I'm still a little worried about this sewer, and I'd like to know from our officers, we've looked at it, and I want to know whether it is adequate to serve that new development.
Yeah, through you, Chair. It was considered at outline stage. There was a planning condition attached to the outline concerning, and we've got to be careful with the terminology, surface water drainage, which is something that planning look at, and as you'll appreciate from the scheme, the surface water drainage is intended to go into the water course at the bottom of the site. In terms of the foul sewage, technically, that's not a consideration for planning because it comes under building regulations. However, Yorkshire Water have been consulted on the outline, discharging the conditions on the outline. That application is currently in with us to discharge the conditions, and they've raised no objections to any aspect of the proposals.
I'm just surprised at that. It's been raised by local councillors, it's been raised by members of the public. I just want to make sure that if and when this development goes forward, we do get it right.
Yeah, it is an important issue. It's been looked at. Yorkshire Water, whose apparatus it is, have seen the plans and they've raised no objection to the detail of the condition discharge. In terms of a process, I don't think we could take that any further because it is their apparatus that Redrow will be connecting into. If they're satisfied with it, that would give us comfort.
Thank you. Well, I don't know which planet some of these people live on. They don't obviously live on the same planet as me, because the sewer, which runs along Stony Bank, was brought up before the last lot of houses was given the OK. That was the Jones homes, and they coupled up to the Stony Bank sewer, which they weren't going to do initially, but it was the cheapest way to do it rather than going to the sewer in Newmill Road, which we as a council allow them to do. The sewer now on Stony Bank has been blocked 4 times in possibly 2 months. No more than 2 months. It's been blocked 4 times. It might have been even longer, but it's been blocked 4 times. People in Kirklees have been swimming in all the wrong things, toilet paper, everything else has been down there. And we, as councils, get the phone calls. We got the phone calls to say what was happening, so we immediately phoned Yorkshire Water for a meeting. They were very, very reluctant to give us a meeting. They said not to do with them because neither the council nor the builders had been in touch with them to tell them what they were going to do and ask them if it was okay to go into that sewer. We did get a meeting with a young fellow and a young woman who listened to us intently. We asked if they'd give us a telephone number. They wouldn't, which is something I couldn't get my head around. But anyway, to cut a long story short, they have now come up with a situation that sewer is not up to scratch. They will not okay or adopt that sewer, this is Yorkshire Water, until somebody does something about it. Now, I don't know which way this sewer's going. It's on Stony Bank. There's a lot of houses there. And I will just say this. I've sat on this planning committee down here for probably close on 20 years, probably even over. And it's getting now, well, it doesn't matter what comes in front of us, it's always all right to do. Doesn't matter about road infrastructure, doesn't matter about the amount of traffic, it's always all right. I do wonder sometimes if officers and these people go to look at those roads, because Stony Bank Road is very narrow, we've got problems down Springwood Road with traffic, and if you go on the Stony Bank Road into Kirkbridge, it's just about the width of a horse and cart. Simple as that. Yet we keep doing these things. It's a case of, I've just written down quickly what you need to do to build houses. First of all, you find yourself a field with some public open land, put in a plan for as many houses as possible, hope it gets passed as an outline, and then add some more houses. What you don't do is look at the infrastructure, you don't check the sewers, you don't check everything, you leave that later for councillors and the council to pick up the tabs. That's not on, and it needs more looking into. It's not just a case of how many can we build, it's just a case of when we are going to build them, as Councillor Sims has said, make a proper job of it, don't make an half-cocked job of it. We've just had a building site at school, started either last week or the week before, called out there yesterday. Everybody told these people when they were building, the bedrock was a foot down. They've been drilling the bedrock, they're quarrying the bedrock now, and people were ringing me yesterday, said pictures were falling off the wall and they were having loads of bother. So, you know, we're getting, well, we aren't taking enough consideration before we're passing these housing sites. They need more looking at. I'm a great believer in giving everything at least a couple of quotes of looking at, but nobody does. Anyway, I've said my piece, and that's it. But I'm not for supporting this as it stands. Sorry. Nobody else?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there are certain aspects of this I don't like, but there are certain aspects of this that we can't do anything about, regrettably. Because we're dealing with a reserved matters application, and a lot of the issues have already been determined. I remember from the last time we looked at this, that the width of Stony Bank Lane was talked about, and that in an ideal world we would widen it so that when it's dealing with the extra traffic from this road, it can cope with it. As it is, we've got a presumably 6.1 metre estate road feeding into a whatever, much narrower, steep, yeah, well, right, 4.5 metres, shall we say. On the face of it, that's not logical. But unfortunately, we can't do anything about it. The issues raised by the first objector, which I think can be answered in the terms that I've already done, we have very limited ability to sort these sorts of things out. The issue raised by the second objector in terms of the height of the building, I think has been satisfactorily dealt with, although I'd just like confirmation about the distance between the existing house and the new one. Is it 21 metres or is it something else? Regardless of the height relationship between the two, does it comply with space about buildings, in which case, even if overlooking is suspected, you can't hang that on something that is 21 metres away, because that's, well, not the law exactly, but it's he's looking for it. Can I? Yeah, I'm not at all clear what we can do about this, because issues relating to drainage have been brought up by both local members and local residents, and it's been said Yorkshire Water are happy with it. But examples have been quoted where things that Yorkshire Water ought to have been happy with clearly weren't satisfactory. Can we have an assurance that there is no problem on this site? Because adding another 50-odd houses to the foul drainage system is quite considerable, we need assurance on that. Otherwise, we're going to defer it again.
It's tricky for us because we are not Yorkshire Water, but we can relay on what we send them. We send those the full drawings that have been submitted as part of the condition discharge process, which are how it is connected, the routing, the diameters of pipes. They have come back and said they are satisfied with that information. When they physically get on site and start to build, as Councillor Firth alluded to, things do happen, don't they? As has happened at. But in terms of making a decision, what is the process? The process is, do Yorkshire Water have the right information on the plan specification to make a decision? They've come back to us and said yes. When the builder gets on site and builds it, he should build it in accordance with those specifications. If there is any deviation from that, he would need to come back to either seek an amendment to us. He'd certainly have to liaise with Yorkshire Water, as it's their apparatus. And if there is any change to that, then that would be material, and we can enforce if there are issues around that. But in terms of making a decision, I think you know enough, but it is for the decision maker to decide that. On drainage.
Can I just say to you, on the Jones Homes job, when they come up to the sewer, the same sewer, Yorkshire Water would never approach. We never approached them to tell them what was going on, and neither did Jones Homes. They just coupled into that sewer, and it's got lots of things against it. They will not adopt it till it's been sorted out. It's as simple as that. Somebody's slipping up somewhere because nobody's speaking to one another. Communication falls down in a lot of cases in planning far too often, and we get something that we don't really want. You know, if the council and other people take more notice of local people and local council, because that's what we're there for, then we wouldn't have these problems, because they're cropping up after the buildings have started. We've got schools on our back now, we've got Jones Homes on our back, God knows what else we're now bringing up. It's as simple as that.
I do accept the point, and it is local knowledge, and we rely on your local knowledge to feed us, but we also have to rely on the information given to us and what those consultees are saying in response to that. These are plans. You're making a decision on the plans. They aren't on site building it as yet. They are saying on the plans they can build what they've agreed. I think that's as far as you can take the decision today on the drainage element. Matt, have you got the...
Yes, Councillor. It does meet our standards, it does meet our policy, but it's probably worth me just explaining the context. You can see here the property at Cobley Green. It's an irregular, it's kind of an L-shaped property. You've got windows on the elevation facing away from the site, and then you've got some windows as well facing towards the site, and then a secondary window on the gable end. Now, the distances in that case are, well, the distance between the habitable room window and the properties that are proposed is well in excess of the 21 metres, but my consideration was the impact on the garden in particular, and in that regard the applicant has confirmed that the levels, and you can see a bit clearer from this plan, this is the boundary, the green line there is the boundary between Cobley Green and the garden and the proposed gardens. You have a 2.8 metre retaining wall which will be set within the site, so that would be, it wouldn't be above the Cobley Green boundary, it would be set below. So you'd have a 2.8 metre drop, and then you'd have a further 2.6 metre drop further down within the site. So in total, it's in the report, each of the three-storey houses will be approximately 5 metres lower than the floor level of the existing dwelling at Cobley Green. And the best way of displaying that information really is on this cross-section. And you can see here that in effect, when viewed from Cobley Green, it would appear as a 2-storey unit as opposed to a 3-storey unit, and that is because of the significant change in levels. So having regard to all those considerations, it's not considered that the impact on the garden of Cobley Green and on the property itself would be significant. It wouldn't be significant enough to warrant refusal, given those circumstances. And as you can see, primarily it's because the dwellings have been set down, so they won't appear as 3-storey units along that boundary.
Members. Eric.
Chair, the principle of development has quite clearly been established, and given what the developer said to us, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation, but I still want some further communication with Yorkshire Water, because there's still a niggling doubt in my mind that the sewage problem hasn't quite been addressed.
Members? Andrew?
Just a clarification, Chair. It says the recommendation is to delegate the approval and the issuing of the decision notice. And then there's a note about if the Section 106 agreement has not been submitted within 3 months. This presumably is 3 months of the decision notice being issued, not today's date, but the point when the head of whatever it's called, strategic investment, thank you, issues the decision notice.
It's from, sorry, through you, Chair, we can't issue the decision until the 106 has been signed, so it's from the date the committee make the decision, so the 3 months runs from then. I would say that the draft heads of terms, there is a draft Section 106 agreement with us, it's with legal at the moment, so the details with us, subject to legal looking through the documentation and contacting their solicitor. So there's no reason why it wouldn't be signed within 3 months.
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to come back on that. I'm prepared to second that, with the proviso that if significant issues arise, that we have it back to try and sort out those issues that have arisen.
I'll listen to everything everybody's said. I think, but it's not just the 106 agreement needs looking into. A lot of those things that I've mentioned need looking into. It's as simple as that, and I won't go for anything more than that.
I think I hear what you're saying, members. I'm going to write to Yorkshire Water as whatever decision if you make a decision to approve, if you defer, if you refuse, whatever. I will write to Yorkshire Water, particularly on this site, to reinforce the issues that have been raised by local residents through their councillors and through members of this planning committee, and seek assurances and comfort that the discharge of condition information they've signed off effectively is satisfied. But again, it's not necessarily a matter for this committee. I will do that, and I will update the ward members on the outcome of that correspondence.
Right, members, this has been moved by Councillor Eric Firth, seconded by Councillor Andrew Pinnock. Those in favour, please show. 4-4. Those against? 2. Next item, page 79, same location. Matthew.
Thank you, Chair. As alluded to in my previous presentation, the previous presentation was covering two applications. So we've dealt with the first one, which was the reserved matters for 48 units. And this is the full application for 4 units, as shown on the red line boundary plan. So I don't intend to say any more because we've already had the discussion about the merits of the complete scheme, or of the scheme I presented.
Thanks, Matthew. Councillor Firth. Eric.
Yes, yeah, we've been discussing 52, and
Yeah.
I thought that this was part of the application, so forgive me. I move the recommendation.
Thanks, Eric. Councillor Patterson. Right. Any more comments? It's been moved and seconded. Yeah. Yeah. Any objectors come forward?
Well, I mean, I've just said it, that's what we asked for to do. It wasn't in the conclusion of the remarks, so can we have that down as a conclusion? But because the bus is
so there's no form.
They'll all be cars, so it's important we get them.
I hear what you're saying, Councillor Sims. Unfortunately, the Metro cards are part of the outline section 106. So effectively, that obligation has already been secured through the... Pardon? We could, but it isn't part of the recommendation because that isn't a matter as part of this outline. This is reserved matters, and those Metro cards are agreed as part of the the outline approval. Yeah. Sorry to have a conversation. Yes, the developer could suggest they're comfortable looking at the Section 106 package. But in terms of what members are being asked to make a decision on, it relates to the reserved matters and the Section 106 within that reserved matters. And these 4 houses, they don't relate to the outline. They are a standalone application for 4 houses, although we discussed 52 in the round.
This has been moved by Councillor Firth. Eric. Seconded by Councillor Patterson. Those in favour of this recommendation, please show. For, against, 2. Next item, page 99. This is White Lane, Oakenshaw.
Thank you, Chair. This application is brought to Strategic Committee as the site and proposed development extends across the council boundary into Bradford. So the proposal is a full application and it lies on the western side of the M606, and the proposal is to partly demolish an existing dwelling, retain the existing garage and part of the existing house wall, and erect a 2-storey, 5-bedroomed house. Now, the plan in front of you shows the elements that are within Kirklees and the elements that are within Bradford. So you'll see that most of the dwelling falls within Bradford. A small element on the right-hand side of the screen is within Kirklees, and that bit's shaded in yellow. Now, the officer recommendation is that the committee delegates its development management powers to Bradford in respect of this application. And the reasons for this are that, as I've already alluded to, the majority of the site, including the existing building, parking and much of the garden, lies within Bradford. and the full planning application and the fee has actually been received by Bradford because the larger proportion of the application falls within Bradford. Now, within Kirklees, the site is designated as Greenbelt, and as such, the small part of the house that is within Kirklees is contrary to Greenbelt policy. Consequently, it is for this reason that it's recommended that the application that it be communicated to Bradford that the application be refused because there are no very special circumstances in this case to outweigh the totality of harm to the Greenbelt. Now, Bradford planning officers have advised the agent that there are issues in terms of the siting of the dwelling, and Bradford planning officers are liaising with the applicant to revise the scale, design and access of the dwelling. So in conclusion, in accordance with Section 101 of the Local Government Act 1972, it's recommended that the Strategic Planning Committee delegate its development management powers to Bradford Metropolitan District Council in respect of application number 2017-93449 as detailed in the officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to move the officer recommendation, but in doing so, I'd just like to make sure what the designation of the land in the Bradford district is. Is it the same as ours? In other words, Greenbelt.
Thank you. The land within Bradford's unallocated land. The Greenbelt boundary is just along the boundary of the Kirklees, along the blue line in effect. Sorry, along the Metropolitan District line. Yeah, it's the blue line, sorry. Sorry, yeah, it is the blue line.
Can I second the recommendation, Chair?
Next, page 105. This is the North Biley Wastewater Treatment Works at Oakenshaw.
Can you forgive me, Chair? I have another appointment. I shall have to.
Red hot in Eckland, like, so.
It is in Eckland, right?
Yeah, cocktail weather.
Thank you.
All right, Eric, thanks. Janet?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Fazana Tabassum. I'm the Planning Case Officer for this application. The application site is located to the southern edge of Bradford between Oakenshaw and Clackheaton. It currently occupies a number of structures relating to the former wastewater treatment works, as shown on this slide. The site lies in an area of Greenbelt, and the brownfield part of the site is put forward for employment on the publication draft local plan. The application as amended is submitted in outline with all matters reserved for the redevelopment of the site to provide employment uses consisting of B1, B2 and B8 use. Indicative plans are submitted to establish the developable areas within the site and associated off-site highway works, which the highway officer will make reference to shortly. An application is also submitted to Bradford Council for a new car park to provide 36 car park spaces for Woodlands Church of England Primary School on a separate parcel of land, as shown here, which lies in the Bradford district north of the application site. A detailed position statement was presented to members on 30th of November, which set out the details of the application and the main issues for members to note and comment on. In view of that, and for the purpose of this presentation, I will refer to the main issues raised at that committee. So the four main issues members raised were reducing the gap and the potential coalescing of two settlements, Clackheaton and Oakenshaw. Number two was officers to review and reconsider all of the highway proposed works at each proposed junction. Number three was overspill of existing tanks and where this flows to. Number four, the predictive levels of investment from the proposals. Following the committee in November and in response to members' comments, further information was submitted by the applicants to address the main issues raised. Firstly, in response to the first issue, Additional plans are received which indicate the existing and proposed levels throughout the site as shown on this slide. This plan shows the distances from the development within the site here, this being the nearest unit on the northern part of the site to the nearest properties on Cliff Hollins Lane. This plan also shows the distance from the development within the site to the northern boundary which adjoins the Greenbelt area of Bradford. The distances are set out in paragraph 10.19 of the agenda. Additional landscaping will also be conditioned beyond the northern part of this unit, closest to the properties on Cliff Hollins Lane. This is to reduce the impact on the greenbelt from the development as shown on this slide. So the landscaping is shown in this green hatched area. In addition to this, a further viability appraisal was received, which is based on the quantum of the commercial development proposed. The viability appraisal has been assessed independently on behalf of the Council by one of the district valuers. Based on the conclusion of the district valuer, officers are of the opinion the revised proposals, which includes an area beyond the brownfield part of the site, will be commensurate with that required to enable the development of an employment-only viable scheme and will retain an adequate level of separation distance between Oakenshaw, thus circumventing coalescing with this neighbouring town. In response to the second issue, highway engineers from both Bradford and Kirklees councils have reassessed the highway works proposed at the various junctions. In response to this, revised highway works have been put forward, which my colleague Peter Firth will now run through.
Through you, Chair. Just want to set out the highways case before I get on to the mitigation works. It's clear this application has been before us some considerable time and extensive negotiations have taken place with the applicant and changes have been made to the initial proposals. Baseline conditions have been established through a series of counts. They were undertaken in late 2013. Growth rates have been applied to these to derive 2017 and 2022 flows for analysis. Proposed development flows have been derived for B1, B2 and B8 uses from the industry standard TRIX database. Development trips have been assigned to the highway network based on the 2011 Census Journey to Work database. An access strategy has been devised based on all of those factors. In terms of numbers, this results in development generations as follows. A prediction of 186 two-way trips in the AM peak, that's 0800 to 0900. This comprises of 167 workers' cars and 19 HGVs. This is assigned to the network on the basis of 20% on Bradford Road, north of Millcar Hill Road, 74% onto Bradford Road, south of Millcar Hill Road, and the remaining 6% on local roads. In the PM peak, the prediction is 151 two-way trips. That comprises of 134 workers' cars and 17 HGVs. That assigns to the network in the same proportions. The access route is primarily from M62 Junction 26, and that's via Bradford Road, Millcar Hill Road, Cliff Hollins Lane, and the site access. In terms of mitigation, changes have been made since the application was last brought to committee for information. Capacity improvements are proposed to the Bradford Road, Millcar Hill Junction, and priority is changed and capacity improvements are proposed at the Millcar Hill Road, Cliff Hollins Lane Junction and the Cliff Hollins Lane site access junction. Those are shown on the slides. That's showing that's the Bradford Road
Mill Car Hill Road, which shows a widening on Mill Car Hill Road and the provision of an island now as well to assist school children and workers who want to access developments down there. The next junction was proposed as a mini roundabout and is now a free flow with a priority from Mill Car Hill Road into Cliff Hollins Lane and a side road that goes into Openshaw and past the school. There are no changes to the final junction, which is the junction between Cliff Hollins Lane and the site access. That's no changes over what you saw last time. The priority is changed at that junction from what exists now, in that the priority is into the site with Cliff Hollins Lane being the side road. Safety audits have been produced for all the junction improvements and have only shown minor points which will be incorporated into detailed design if the scheme progresses. Highways are satisfied that the impacts of the development have been investigated, understood and mitigated where necessary. On this basis, Highways have no objections.
Moving on to the third issue members raised, whilst no further information is received in relation to where the overflow of the tanks goes to, the application proposals have been discussed with the Environment Agency, Yorkshire Water and the Council's lead local flood authority officers. The assessment and conclusions are set out in the report and basically subject to all the proposed mitigation measures being incorporated into the development and recommended conditions by these consultees. There will be no drainage. There are considered to be no drainage issues. In response to the fourth issue members raised, paragraph number 10.76 in the agenda details the predictive levels of investment likely to be generated from the proposed development. If I can now refer members to the committee update and to note the further comments and recommendations from environmental health officers and Highways England. Also, in addition to the 24 representations referred to in the update, a further 17 representations are received as of yesterday. In addition to the update, a confidential paper has also been circulated to committee members that includes details of the viability assessment so they can consider the viability issues involved within this application. To summarise, officers are of the opinion, based on the conclusion of the District Valuer on the viability appraisal, which demonstrates that the proposals with the amount of floor space proposed would not be making an excessive or windfall profit, and importantly, it is noted the developable areas proposed is a minimal uptake of land required to ensure a policy-compliant viable scheme. The amount of uptake of land would also compare to the amount of employment land expected to be delivered on this site by the emerging publication draft local plan. Furthermore, in light of there being no unresolved objections to the employment allocation, officers are of the opinion the local plan employment allocation on the emerging plan can be given significant weight. To conclude, the recommendation is to delegate approval of the application to secure Section 106 for the off-site associated highway works to be approved under Section 278 to be completed by all parties. That's Bradford Council, Kirklees Council and any third parties, the applicants. A financial contribution of £71,370, the calculated damage costs to be used towards air quality mitigation measures within the vicinity of the site, and £20,000 towards a real-time passenger information displays in at two existing bus stops. Thank you, Chair.
Right, we've got 11 speakers on this now. First speaker I've got down is John, wherever you're. John Lawson. Do you want to speak first, John, or do you want me to bring in number 10, which would be just before the agent. It's up to you. That all right? Right. In that case, then, we've got Alan Wainwright, one of the Bradford councillors.
Chair, members of the panel, my name is Councillor Alan Wainwright. I represent Tongward in Bradford. It borders the land in Kirklees, where this planning application is being heard today. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Milker Hill Road in Tong borders onto the proposed access to the site in discussion today. At the point where it is proposed to alter the road for access by HGVs is Woodlands Primary School. The school has been there since the 1850s, has been used and still used by pupils from Woodlands and Oakenshaw Village. A lot of them walk, others are in cars. As a councillor, I recognise that with the draconian cuts made to local government by the coalition government and now the present government, councils are desperate to increase revenues by encouraging developments to increase business and household rates income. I will not speak about issues in relation to the schools, there are better qualified people behind me, but there's residents from Whiteward, they see massive issues on Bradford Road and Cleckeaton Road on a daily basis. Milker Hill Road is narrow, steep, it commences in Byerley in Tongward and in many places is single track. When it reaches Woodlands Village there are two blind bends, one by the entrance of the farm, the stables, then further down near the entrance to the school. I note in the highways proposals that is intended to have a pedestrian crossing opposite the school entrance and that a developer would provide a car park on land opposite the school for school staff. Milker Hill Road in Tongward, Cliff Hollins Lane in Kirklees. 3 years ago, people could do a 4-mile strenuous walk from Tong Street, through Byerley, through Woodlands Village, then to Cliff Hollins Lane, Toffshire Lane, back to Tong Street. If you do that now, you take your life into your hands. Put another development on here, it's going to be far worse. When I was informed that this plan was to be reintroduced on the 23rd of January, very short notice, I visited the local school. I also visited the area every day, and at no time did I see any notices other than those from last August informing people of any changes or proposed changes to the highway. So, on behalf of Tongward councillors, residents of Woodland Village, many residents on Byerley Lane, Spenview Lane, at the top of Milker Hill, I urge you not to give planning consent for this proposal, but to defer it so that the developer can make plans for a site entrance that does not need to be where it is. We have no objection whatsoever to your plans if you can find a different entrance away from narrow roads. Thank you.
Next, I've got Sarah Ferriby.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a Whitehall councillor, and as you know, Oakenshaw is split between two authorities. However, it is one community. And while employment land may be required to be developed, it has to be accessed where appropriate. And I'm objecting to the proposed development because I think that the access and egress from Bradford Road with the junctions of Milker Hill and Cliff Hollins Lane are unsuitable due to the increase in volumes of traffic. In reality, it is not fit for this development. While some of my concerns have been taken on board previously by the developer, the one thing you cannot mitigate against is the increasing volumes of traffic that will access this site and also driver behaviour. Bradford Road and the associated junctions, and not forgetting White Lane, already are highly congested and used for rat running, not only when the M606 or M62 are blocked, but on a daily basis. With this comes speed on what are unsuitable roads for high volumes of traffic. And as we all know, once a large vehicle has commenced a manoeuvre, it's hard to change that. While the plans to widen Milker Hill Road and Bradford Road Junction and Cliff Hollins, I'm very worried about the conflict because it's a highly densely used area with movements of young people and their parents to and from school. Bradford Road is regularly at a standstill, and this affects the whole village and creates tailbacks at times right up to Victoria Park. And that affects the side roads, and the air quality as well will also be affected. It's extremely busy. All residents will be affected, whether you're young, old, parents collecting your children from school, people going about their everyday lives. There's a plan for a crossing on what we've been told for years by Kirklees officers on Bradford Road is very dangerous. It's on a blind bend, it's an adverse camber, it's near existing properties which have very little choice of where to park except on the roadside. There's been numerous collisions, near misses and serious accidents over the years, and I'm extremely concerned about this proposal. And I don't actually think that this consideration being given in terms to the villagers of Oakenshaw, the residents of Woodlands, residents on Bradford Road, White Lane, Tong, Byley, or the increased traffic movements outside the school. And also, it's within the home zone of 2 existing chemical sites. So therefore, I'm of the opinion that an alternative access and egress route should be sought away from the village, moving any traffic movements away from these junctions, and I would ask members to refuse this application today. Thank you.
Next, I've got Alison Keenelan, Woodland School Governor, who's objecting.
I'm Vice Chair of the Governors at Woodlands. As a school, we have many serious concerns regarding the current outline plans, which bring many unnecessary and unwanted safeguarding issues to the school's front door. The proposed zebra crossing outside his school is just after a blind bend. Oncoming traffic will not slow down as this crossing will be out of sight until the last moment. This is not safeguarding our children. The playground at Woodlands is very small. The continual passing of HGVs down Milker Hill will ensure they pass extremely close to the boundary, which will stop the children from being able to play on the grass in the playground. The fencing could not withstand the impact of a HGV should one get into difficulty, and it could end up in the playground, perhaps at the same time as playtime. Again, not safeguarding our children. The car park. The school has no money in their budget to maintain this going forward, and the school cannot keep this site secure. Who's responsible for its maintenance, lighting, fencing, locking gates? Who's responsible for ensuring that people such as drug dealers do not use this car park? How is it to be policed? Who will clean the car park? On the plans it shows a gate at the back of the car park allowing access to adjacent field. Horses are on that field. Will horses be walking through the car park? Is this a lockable gate, and who is responsible for this? Will they have access to the lock for the main gate? Currently there are only 36 spaces in the car park. It's proposed all the surrounding roads are double lined, forcing parents no alternative but to use this car park. How are they to fit in? Yesterday it was a fine sunny day, many parents chose to walk, yet there were still 53 cars parked outside school for pick-up. Where did the surplus go? There's only one entrance to the car park. At peak times it will be a bottleneck. It could take parents 15 minutes to exit the car park. Okay. On the plans to the left of the entrance there's a giveaway junction which could cause more congestion. It could take up to half an hour to leave. The car park entrance is opposite the school entrance and the school car park for the teachers. again putting children and pedestrians in unnecessary danger due to increased vehicles at peak times, not safeguarding our children. The car park is to be a gift from the developers. As I understand it, due to the fact that it's to be gifted from the developers, we as a school are quite within our rights to refuse this gift. Legally, if we refuse it, where does that leave Kirklees Council? Finally, if parents decide their journey to and from school deems too dangerous, they may remove their child to a different school that can safeguard their child. We are a small half-form entry village school in the heart of Oakenshaw. It does not take many children to leave before the council will consider us no longer a viable option. Thank you.
Next, I've got Wendy Hamilton.
Good afternoon, Chair, councillors and officers. As a parent of a child at Woodland C of E Primary School and a member of Oakenshaw Residents Association, I am here today to speak against these proposals. I walk my daughter to and from school during the working week, as I have done so for the past 10 years with my other children. The route is always extremely busy and crossing Bradford Road is difficult to say the least. If this development were to be approved, the risk of serious injury or even death to children and parents would be greatly increased due to the size, weight and volume of traffic on Milcar Hill Road, in what is essentially a very narrow highway. To widen this road would in turn narrow the footpaths, therefore putting pedestrians close to the traffic and in imminent danger. Should the worst happen, and a heavy goods vehicle lose control whilst heading down an icy road such as Milcar Hill, the chances are it would go straight through the school fence and possibly even plough onwards to the school building itself due to stopping distances that are required for such large vehicles. To risk the lives of local people in this way, in my opinion, would be irresponsible. And although I am sure the results of traffic surveys, etc., provided to the committee will say otherwise, the residents of Oakenshaw and those who work there know the truth about the sheer volume of traffic heading through our village, which is already at saturation point. The thought of standing on the proposed island in the middle of Milcar Hill Road is terrifying, particularly if two HGVs were to pass at the same time. I consider this idea completely unacceptable and would suggest it needs to be looked at seriously in terms of safety. The development would also mean the Woodland school children would no longer be able to decorate the village Christmas tree on the corner of Milcar Hill Road and Bradford Road as part of their festive celebrations, something that many of the locals also get involved in and is supported by our local councillors. I hope in consideration of this application you will take into account the impact on the children, elderly and other residents of the village. After all, a price cannot be put on the safety of a community and its children. I would also urge the committee to have the courage to refuse this application unless an alternative point of access and egress can be found, avoiding Oakenshaw village completely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Next, I've got David Rhodes.
Good afternoon, councillors and committee, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is David Rhodes, and I'm chair of Oakenshaw Residents Association, and have been for 12 years. And the purpose of the Residents Association is to bring the community of Oakenshaw together, to enhance our community spirit and improve the village, and whatever it takes to benefit the people who live in the village. We were faced with this proposal some 4 years ago, and we told the developers quite clearly that although we were sad to lose the green belt, that we would understand, that we're not Luddites and we understand the need for progress, but we've made it quite clear on many occasions that the access road is not appropriate as it goes right through the heart of our village. And we are faced with ever larger and ever greater traffic schemes. Every time there's an application, the scheme gets bigger, it gets more intense, it gets more threatening, and will divide our community into two. And we would ask you to bear this in mind and to refuse this application in its form. We are not totally opposed to the Greenbelt. We would accept that, but the access to the site is totally inappropriate for a village setting, and we would ask that you would reconsider this access and give some regard to the people who live in the village who would have to deal with this every single day, twice a day and more. Thank you very much for listening to me today, and I hope you'll take those points in regard. Thank you so much.
Next, it's Brian Pearson.
Good afternoon. Slightly different tack from myself, from what you've heard of written statements so far. And 3 minutes will not do justice to what I'd like to say. So I'm going to have to try and be as brief as I can, which will cut out a lot of very important points, I might say. I just want to remind you of what you heard from one of the previous applications in terms of not always getting it right. And indeed, what comes before the committee is not necessarily the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Now, that's a strong statement. I spent 6 hours reading the officer's report, and I could refer you, and I'm going to refer you to a number of paragraphs within it, which I know you can't consider straight away. There's been 2 pages of public disquiet, and I haven't heard that referred to, or indeed any consultation, and that starts at paragraph 7.1. At 10.20, the applicant's case for VCS to justify the identifier is based on the need for more employment. Nothing else. Doesn't have any regard to what it does to the public or anything further. You then move forward to the 2 proposals that have been put together for this. The first one, when back in 14, very quickly dismissed. Back then to one with 101 residential units on it. And this is what I find upsetting, really, when I read it. In view of this and a number of other environmental concerns for the future residents of the residential dwellings in close proximity to the motorways and industrial users, the plans have been revised. I'm talking paragraph 1027 here. My understanding is that we can't build that number of houses because of coma and the chemical works. If that's the case, why couldn't we have said that? I'll have to leave some of the others around that area. 1038, to summarise, officers have given substantial weight to this harm and consider VCS exists, which outweigh the identified harm. That's around the viability statements you've had. Nobody has asked for a viability statement just on the brownfield site alone. They've been asked to go into greenfield, and as a result of that, in the application before this, the greenfield was dismissed straight away by Kirklees. It talks about at 1047 Grampian costs and puts a value of 71,370 on the... Well, the wrapping up comes with these maps that you're talking about. I have one important statement to make, though, here on this one. 1043. The MPP paragraph 109 states the planning system should contribute to and enhance the natural and local environment by preventing both new and existing development from contributing, and this is the important part of it, or being put at unacceptable risk or being adversely affected by unacceptable levels of soil, air, water or noise pollution. And the final thing I want to ask is, with regard to the maps, Well, I'm just going to say we need to ask the highways as to whether the audits have come from, because this report says there's been no audits. Can I just say, with regard to the process, I'm going to say this, whether you go get the bills to chuck me out or not. It's absolutely, what are you signing for? You're a public officer. You're a public officer. What are you signing for? I've done 40 years as a public officer, and you're supposed to give respect to situation. We have this to live with for the rest of our lives. You will move on to next business. Show some respect. You also show respect. I've done that. I've done that. Just show some respect.
Next, Michael Brown.
You'll see that this isn't Michael Brown, but it's in fact me, David Rhodes again, from the Residents Association. Michael Brown and Gary Ford could not be here today, and they've asked us to read a prepared statement. But I'm not going to do that, because it's things that have already been said. So out of respect for you, I'm not going to read their statement, because it merely reflects on the traffic situation and says the same as already been said. Is that okay? Yes. Thank you.
Next up, I've got Gerald Barstow.
He can't be here, I'm very sorry. Yes, he was the same. He's a local resident.
Yeah.
It was the same issue, traffic. So.
Traffic. Right, thank you. Next, John. Where are you there? John Lawson.
I've sent in a longer list that's in the pack, and my concerns about, just some of my concerns about this development include number of traffic movements, obstructions of roads that are access to the school, queuing traffic on Milcar Hill whilst the junction is backed up, worsening access to Chain Bar Roundabout, and worsening air quality. That said, that's a brief overview of my concerns on the development. That said, it's the number of traffic movements that I want to hone in on. Most of this traffic movement is industrial, and there's no timing limits on when this traffic will actually be present on the road. But it's the proximity to the school and these levels of traffic increase that I want to really address. About a year ago, about 6 months ago, in Kirklees, a primary school called Our Lady of Victories School ran a short and busy campaign against local HGV training schools who had put extra routes past their school for HGVs, which had generated extra numbers of HGVs outside their school in close proximity. So I've spoken to the head teacher there, and I spoke to the chap who headed up the campaign there, and after a couple of questions, we realised that after this short and busy campaign, no less a person than Peter Hearn, the director of the DVSA, the Driving and Vehicle Standards Agency at North, had instructed, not asked politely, but instructed the driving schools to change their route. The number of extra vehicle movements was 15 a day. Now, this development is stacking up to do 186 p.m, of which I think were in the teens were HGV vehicles. And in the afternoon, there was the 151 movements with, again, in the teens, HGV movements. So I'd just like committee to compare those two numbers and just to see what kind of weight we need to give to that increase in numbers. Woodland School couldn't be better placed. I know it's in Bradford. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. This planning issue will impact on them.
So it's our responsibility. We have to take ownership of this. Woodland School couldn't be better placed for a quiet, secluded spot for children to go to school, to travel to school, etc. This development seems to have been purposely designed almost, you couldn't design it better, to take traffic up to its doorstep. So it's our intervention, or the development's intervention, that is causing this proximity. It's causing these two separate things that should be kept apart. It's causing them to rub up against one another. It is a difficult decision that you're going to face today, because jobs are needed, the business rates are needed desperately, and more desperately as time goes on, but not at any cost. What I did notice when I was looking through the pack was that there was no third-party highways safety impact statement, which I would have expected to see on something this sensitive, or something of this sensitive nature. So I think I'm going to wrap up, because I'm in danger of repeating previous points. But in short, I don't think the village is ready for this development. I honestly don't. And I'll leave it there. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yes. It's Guard Lane. It's a Guardhouse Lane. Yeah. Head teacher was Peter Booth, and it was Mr. Medlock. Oh, really? Anyway, I'll let you work.
Finally, I've got Matthew Shepherd, who's the agent.
Chair, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. We welcome your officer's report. It clearly shows that there are no objections to the scheme from either statutory or non-statutory consultees. There are no technical issues that can't be dealt with by conditions. On this basis, we share your officer's view that there is not a sustainable reason for refusal. The site is currently in the Greenbelt, but we have to bear in mind that the UDP was adopted in 1999. The UDP only provided allocations designed to meet need up to 2006. There has been a great deal of change since then, and the UDP's land allocations are clearly not adequate for today's industrial land market. This is why it's important to remember that the site is the subject of a draft allocation for employment uses. This demonstrates the clear need for the development, and that your officers have been through a process to demonstrate that there are no better sites where this need can be met. The development is a key part of the Council's strategy to meet the district's economic needs. The draft allocation has only attracted 2 comments at the local plan examination, both of which are positive and supportive of the allocation. As no one is objecting to the draft allocation, you can be assured today that the allocation will be carried through when the plan is adopted. This means you can give this allocation practically the same weight as if the emerging plan was adopted. The scheme could help to meet the existing needs for advanced manufacturing businesses, which are currently faced with either being stuck in low-grade and inappropriate buildings, or who will have to consider moving outside the district. It will also deliver some significant benefits, including nearly 800 jobs and £33 million of GVA annually. The majority of this site is previously developed land, which already affects the openness of the Greenbelt. The greenfield element of the site is needed to ensure that the development is viable. Developing this site means that you don't have to find other, less suitable and more sensitive Greenbelt land in order to meet the needs set out in your emerging plan. I'm also conscious that we've not yet answered your query about any overtopping of the existing tanks on site. These are large-scale tanks and would require a very significant and sustained period of rainfall to fill up. To date, there have been no incidents where the tanks have overtopped. This is the result of the amount of rainfall we tend to have and the effect of evaporation, which keeps the levels low. In any event, there is no material harm that would occur even if rainwater did happen to enter the land around the tanks and soak away. Finally, given the concerns you've heard from the people living near this site, I have to mention highways. We listened to the concerns you raised when you considered the position statement on this application. We've reviewed the highways solution with both highways authorities, and as a result, we've amended the scheme to reduce the risks you felt existed with our previously agreed solution. We've also examined a number of alternative access options, none of which were feasible or viable. I hope that these changes mean that you are now able to accept your officer's conclusions. In the light of the lack of harm and significant benefits that this development will create, I'm asking you to please approve this application today. Thank you.
Andrew, I saw you stick something up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Before I start, I've just been looking because I've read it. Sorry, it's there. This was just taking up one of the points that the last speaker has made about advanced manufacturing and so on. What I find interesting is that in paragraph 3.2, when it's talking about the split of different types of business uses, we've got 70% B8, which is warehousing and distribution. I can't square that with the other figure that's mentioned somewhere where it says it's going to create 388 jobs. I'm failed. That doesn't seem to compute to me. When you have 70% of B8 use, I would strongly urge, if it's at all possible, to reduce that B8 percentage because this is the kind of use that creates a lot of lorry movements but not very many jobs. I'm not decrying storage and distribution, don't get me wrong. It's absolutely necessary, but in terms of the employment mix for an area, I'm not happy with that. That's a criticism of what's actually in the report, and this is before I've started on things surrounding the application. A couple of points that Councillor Lawson mentioned, particularly in regard to the school in Keighley and whether this can be related to Woodlands Primary School and the situation here. I'm not sure whether it can, but what he also mentioned is a road safety audit, which and this is where I start getting really worried. I don't know what the vehicle flows are on Bradford Road, particularly the bit between the church and Chain Bar. But at the moment, even though this is a C road, the volume of traffic using it is more like an A road. And this is at all times of day and night and consists of a fairly high proportion of HGVs. It is now suggested that we will add to that in the morning peak, and this is just the morning peak, that's just 1 hour, 186 vehicle movements, 19 of which I believe are HGVs. But that's still 186 vehicle movements added to what is already a busy road. And I find, and these figures sort of take no account of what happens during the rest of the day, other than the evening peak, which is 151 with 17 HGVs. I am not against redeveloping this site. I think it's important to deal with brownfield sites, even if they're in the green belt, and even if you have to use a bit of greenfield site in order to make it viable, because part of the viability of the site has been knocked on the head by Highways England, taking a rather large chunk out of the bottom corner of this. I'm not against the development of this site, but I am really very unhappy about the highways impact, which I think, although I can understand the engineering proposals to deal with it, I think it still has an impact beyond that, and one which is actually not mentioned in the report. I don't think any of these figures are there, and which is a pity. I don't see how I can recommend refusal. I would, on the whole, on balance, want it deferred so that we can sort out some of these issues to see if there is a solution. to developing a site which, as has been said quite rightly by the applicant's agent, makes a valuable contribution to the provision of jobs, so long as it does provide the sort of level of jobs that that is mentioned. So that would be my. I'd like to move deferral.
Members, Councillor Firth.
Yes, following on from my friend there, Bradford Road is, the bit I know about Bradford Road, it is a very, very busy road. And whatever you put inputting onto Bradford Road, from whatever site it is, the site will add more problems on Bradford Road. But even without this site, Bradford Road is going to get busier and busier because there's going to be more and more traffic. And what is needed is somebody to look carefully at Bradford Road to see if we can do any safety work there before this is actually decided upon. I mean, road safety is the main consideration, and all the speakers this afternoon, that's been the main force. Has been road safety, both for children in schools, for pedestrians, even for traffic, because it is going to up the amount of traffic. Although, as I say, even with that added too, Bradford Road will still get busier. The more traffic that gets on, the more houses we build, the more traffic is generated. But I do think, I don't know how much work's been done with Bradford Road, traffic counts, etc. I've no idea. But I think it needs a good quarter looking at before we decide on anything. And I think I will go along with Councillor Pinnock for, to just defer it for more looking at, see if we can't make it a little bit or a lot safer than it's supposedly going to be. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, yes, I can shed a little light on that. I mean, obviously, counts have been done on Bradford Road, etc. I beg pardon? Well, it'll be over a. I think the junction counts, so they are manual counts, so they're done once. One period over a 12-hour, usually. So in terms of flow, is it useful to outline flows on Bradford Road or not? What do you want to do, Chair? Yeah? Okay. So 2017 flows on Bradford Road, south of Milcar Hill Road. We have a two-way flow in the AM peak of 1144. We have a development flow of 138, which is a 12% increase. That's the scale. In the PM, we have a two-way flow of 1391, which is higher, and a development flow of 112, and the percentage of the flow there is 8%. That's the order that we're talking here. And those are in the peaks. Obviously, we're looking at the worst case here. In the off-peaks, development traffic is a lot less, and background traffic will be normal network flows, and the elongated AM and PM periods with an interpeak that's slightly less. Just again to try and be helpful. In terms of the capacity of Bradford Road, I refer back to Design Manual for Roads and Bridges. There's a chapter of that, 7999, traffic capacity of urban roads. I assess this link as a urban all-purpose 2, and that has a theoretical capacity of 2450. So that's the context, shall we say? No, in the hour. in the hour.
I think members, it is a difficult decision for members on the face of it, and I've listened to a lot of the debate, and it does speak us particularly around comings and goings and highways impacts. But the emerging local plan allocation, which is for up to 42,000 and something square metres of industrial space, and this is at 35,000 square metres, has looked both at the capacity of the site, the routing of the access, the position of the access, and the local plan has obviously promoted this site with that allocation. This planning application has taken it to a second step of looking at the actual highway mitigation works necessary to accommodate this level of employment use. The 3 junctions that have been looked at were revised following the position statement report you first considered at the last committee. You've heard from your highways engineer about whether he considers, 1, he knows enough, 2, the initial road safety audits have been carried out. Have we liaised with the highway authority whose works they're going to be in, Bradford? Yes, they have. Are they in agreement with those works? Is there capacity? You've heard the answers for that. So I do understand it is a difficult decision, but on the face of it, there isn't a lot more information we can provide you at this time, other and above what we've done, picking up from what was said in the position statement to what you're being shown today. And I do appreciate that, and then you've got to ask yourself, in terms of the movement impacts that we know that the site is being promoted through the allocations, that has a highways assessment done with it to justify it at 42,000. You're considering an application at 35,000 square metres of commercial industrial space. You're then looking at whether the junction works are acceptable. Your engineers are advising you, both ours and Bradford's, who's going to do it. And then secondly, you're looking at what the impact is in terms of sensitive receptors around the school. And then this question becomes, what is any mitigation being done there? And I think there's a proposed condition that says a TRO shall be put in place to restrict HGV movements up Cliff Hollins. So picking that up, the routing isn't going past the school directly. It is in close proximity. I'm not disagreeing with that.
What?
But you do have to understand what level of information you're being asked. It's an outline, it's principle, it's the point of access exists. Are the off-site highway works there satisfactory? Have they been audited? Are there planning conditions that can breach the gap? And that's the decision for members. I do appreciate it is a difficult decision nonetheless.
Can I just say, logically, if there wasn't a problem, there wouldn't have been any objectors here today, and we've had a lot of objectors, all with the same story, traffic and danger. Now, I'm not willing to go along with traffic and danger when people out there, and they live in that area, so they know what the situation is. It's another situation. We have got to start listening to local people wherever they are. It's no good just doing a traffic count and saying, well, this is it, this is what the formula is, and this is how it is, Matthias, because if we do that, we're likely to fall down on it again. And we don't need to do that. We need to get it right. And if there's all these people have been here today to object, they're objecting, not for the sake of objecting, they're objecting because they're frightened of what will happen and what can happen with the traffic that goes along Bradford Road. Thank you.
I do agree, and it's about evidence, isn't it? And we've brought forward the applicant's evidence, the assessment of Bradford Highways engineers, the assessment of Kirklees Highways engineers, the issues that have been raised through local representations, the revisions to the plan. So all of that is in the round, and it is a sensitive and important issue. But I do understand the question is, are you in a position to make a decision? And and I'm not sure what more information we would be able to bring to you. That's just my advice.
Councillor Patterson.
Just one bit of information. I think I've heard it said, but can you say it again if need? In terms of the access, is there any other? I mean, lots of people have said they're quite happy with some development on the site, but it's the access. I'm not talking about. I mean, I think obviously the applicant has gone some way to looking at. I mean, we saw the difficulties with those junctions, and they have gone some way to try and mitigate those. But is there any other access? I mean, I can remember it was A, there's the motorway, and B, there's a very steep side, if I remember rightly, coming down from the motorway. But what access is there?
I think the applicant made the point they've looked at a number of alternative options. Given the constraints of the site, you said the 606 itself, the issue at the back end of the site where Highways England are having a safeguarded land for any flyovers. No, there isn't another option. And on the option that's being presented, our advice is it's safe and it can go through to detailed design stage. And it does meet with the capacity of both within the local plan allocation, and this is a lesser capacity than that. So
if Council Patterson is going to come on and are supported on that, on looking for a new access, a safer access.
Well,
There's got to be something.
at the moment, where we are, we've got Andrew's moved deferral.
Yeah.
Donald, you've seconded it. I think, from listening to everybody, all objectors, listening to yourselves, we all know how important these applications are. We're getting big employment and retail and all that stuff, but we have got to get it right. If you want to put a deferral forward to look at something else with highways, sure, could that Highways England have the arm twisted a little bit and, try and do some negotiation with them?
Look, I hear what you say. If you want us to take it away and look at the issue, we can do. I think what I would want to set out at this stage is we will go through the other options and set out a report of what the applicants looked at, and we will come back with that. If it comes back that this is the only option available, then we will have to make a recommendation at that time on this plan. I don't think I can say fairer than that. Is that a way forward for committee?
Would it be possible to get somebody from Highways England to come and, rather than be a faceless wonder wherever they hang out, for them to come and sit and have some questions put to them, if needs be? Yeah? Andrew? Thanks, Donald. Right, Andrew.
Can I just emphasise one point, quite apart from any alternative access, and that is the point that Councillor Lawson made about the school in Keighley and whether that can be, those factors can be transferred to this case, and also whether there is or there isn't a road safety issue on Bradford Road, which is added to by this development. I think that's important. We do road safety audits in much less significant planning applications. We do need to do one with this.
Through you, Chair. I suppose there are two elements to this. There's one, the accident record that exists. Now, clearly we've looked at that, and there are one or two accidents down Bradford Road, but nothing that springs out as anything out of the ordinary. Just to go through that. Yeah. So, Just get my bearings. So yeah, there are two accidents at the junction of Bradford Road with Wyke Lane from, well, 25th of December 2011, and one on the 4th of the 6th 2014. That moving down the road, there are another two in the residential area from 29th and 11th 2012 and 20th of the 1st 2013, and then there's one by the business park and three at the golf club entrance, so at junctions typically, and that's the accident record on Bradford Road. So
right, members.
And the other element from a safety point of view is the road safety audits, which has been brought up a couple of times and I haven't responded to. Road safety audits have been done for the revised junction layouts. I think they were done by a company called Mayor Brown. Yes, Mayor Brown, reputable highway consultant. So the process has been followed. They have identified minor issues that would be incorporated into detailed design.
Right, so for deferral, those please show. That's 5, that's unanimous, that's it. Committee, thank you for today.